Okay, so do a quick lunch stream. Again, testing out some new stuff. Got my overhead camera fixed, I think. So, two things. I want to work on a design for Montana Sapphires. Here's some rough that I have. These are all around the for the rough stage. These are all around the 5 to 6 carat range. So hopefully finishing, in that 1 carat. And you can see they're all Montana Sapphire is known for kind of being this nice rounded shape. So we're going to do a round design. And I might try to do some gemology lesson here. Some parallel study. So yeah, there's this, I don't know if it'll go over specifically Montana Sapphires, but the Sapphire Specialist mini course. This is part of the curriculum I'm going through IGS for gemology study. So maybe let's just go into, oh look, they have a Montana Sapphire article. Okay, Montana's the treasure state, produces nearly all the sapphire in the U.S. Good to know. The rich cornflower blue Yogo sapphires. I've heard about these, but very difficult to obtain. I've never been able to find any. The ones that I'm sorry, let me switch over so you can see. So the ones, hold on, I'm going to switch back quickly. So these ones that I'm showing here are not from the Yogo Gulch, I think, or something it's called. Those ones are crazy. I hope maybe I'll find one this year at Tucson. But let's go back here and here. And yeah, they can be fancy colored, so they don't have to be classic blue. They've got pink and yellow and red. And I think technically there's even rubies, which are pretty rare. But yeah, let's go through this. Montana Sapphire is simply a sapphire from Montana. Go figure. Yogos are also, but they originate from a particular deposit for its excellent color. I kind of just mentioned this. Both sapphires and rubies are gem quality corundum, which is true. So there's two keys there. Corundum is the mineral. So if it's red, specifically colored by chromium, I believe, it's a ruby, and everything else is a sapphire. Even though traditionally sapphires were just blue, now anything that's not a ruby is a sapphire. So like a pink sapphire or a yellow sapphire. And also gem quality. So you can find like rubies and sapphires or like red and blue corundum in other places in the US, but they're not necessarily gem quality. They're awesome for gem cutting and jewelry. Hardness of 9. There's not much that's harder than them. Naturally speaking, I think they are only surpassed by diamond. There are some synthetics or lab created things like moissanite that are harder technically. Yeah, only mined in Montana. Let's see, the 4 areas. So this was in 1865, in 1865, gold rush prospectors discovered sapphire in the gravels of the Missouri River. At the time, these stones were waste that got in the way of extracting gold. That's kind of the common story with a lot of cool mineral specimens and gemstones is they were looking for some other resource they were trying to bulk extract, like gold or silver or copper. And there's all these cool minerals at the time that they're just kind of discarding, like, who needs that? And, later on people are like, I can't believe we threw that away. But like it says here, these pebbles were nearly worthless. Now we produce very large ones with a 20 carat specimen, which would be crazy, which is not unheard of. They also discovered it in Rock Creek and Dry Cottonwood Creek. These produce pale colored but high clarity rough. To complicate matters, I didn't know this. The original geological source for these gems is currently unknown. One theory suggests ancient sapphire-bearing mountains weathered away. So these things must have weathered out of wherever they were a super long time ago because there's just not much of a trace other than the sapphires themselves. Another theory is a long distance glacial transport. So that's cool. I didn't know that. So Yogo sapphires, which I mentioned. Okay. So they're slightly different. They occur in an igneous host rock. Miners can go and find them rather than. So the other kinds, you are like sifting. You're like gathering sediment from stream beds and sifting through it to find the sapphires. I think there's only one claim for Yogo sapphires, if I remember correctly. Interesting. Yeah, it's an inactive mine. There's like a kind of like a weird situation around that. Yeah, and they are commonly heat treated to become the blue or teal or blue-green colors. That's often what they heat to. I guess, again, this is probably why Yogos are so valuable. They have that cornflower with blue, which is it's like the second most valuable quote-unquote color below royal blue, I think. And you can get that without any treatment, but they're small. Okay. No color zoning, another good thing. About 2% exhibit deep purple, and it can produce a few rubies. Magenta pink ruby is a rarity. Wow, that's a beautiful cut. Beautiful trillion cut. Okay, heat treatment here again. Which ones have gone? Heat treatment. Pink and yellow stones have natural, and the green and blue have undergone heat treatment. Yeah, that's pretty common. Like if they're these deep blues, and I guess they're not from Yogo, they're probably heat treated. But there's actually places in the US, if you ever mine or find unheated rough and you want to see if it will heat to a better color, that people that will infect most of the mines will heat them for you as a service. Interesting. So we have some that have asterism or star sapphire, but I hadn't heard of that, and it sounds like they're pretty uncommon. Cool. Boom. We learned a little bit. I knew some of this stuff already, but sweet, that is completed. Got to see my progress update there. Boom, 1 out of 22 for this Sapphire Specialist mini course. Okay, so let's go back to here maybe. So again, these are all relatively the same shape, so the same design will probably work with all these, and I won't mind, like round designs just sell way better. Sapphire sell a lot better than a lot of different stone types. So let's go to see web browser and let's go to the design session. Okay. All right, so we're gonna go for, and I want to do a 12-sided round. I think I've already called it that. Yeah, or I just call it round here. But so this is the second design stream. We did a short garnet one before. But we're gonna start here with the 12 symmetry. So again, I like to start with the outline shape, which is super easy in high symmetry. So the outline is controlled by the girdle, basically. Which I have my recently created giant rupee that's helpful for this, because I actually have an even better thing that's glass, but it's upstairs. So if we go back to this overhead here, so you'll notice like this, you can see it maybe easier this way to see so you can see it has that rupee, that elongated hexagon shape. The thing that defines that is the girdle, which is this, little thin, it's kind of flashing there, little thin area that's 90 degrees to our table, which is the top of the stone, this big flat facet. Sorry, I'm getting used to this. So anyway, girdle at 90 degrees, that controls whatever our outline's going to be. And in higher symmetry meaning like for example, this is double symmetry of 2, a mirror symmetry of 2, because it's mirrored across, let's see if I can just, like across this axis, And across this axis, it's mirrored. It looks the same. So in a 12-sided, it's as long as you keep doing multiples of 12, it's a 12 symmetry. And those are just easier to design. So again, we got 12 symmetry, we're on 96 index, and we're at 90. So we can see here, it always starts out with this cube, and we'll just cut in a depth till all that cube edges are gone, and we have our nice outline shape. This helps. I just like it as a first step. It doesn't end up being the first step in the instructions, but you know, you're kind of like going along here, and I don't know if I have a Montana sapphire, but I can do just colorless sapphire for the material for now. All right, so we'll start there. And this will usually just say something like set size, because this is going to dictate, you know, the more we cut in on the, you know, the more we cut that in, the smaller the stone will be, you know, in width. And so that's effectively setting the size of the stone, because everything is based off of those proportions. So next, let's do a quick, I've been liking to start with 43, so let's start with 43 on the pavilion with 12 facets. And this time I don't think I will put anything on the crown yet. So another thing we need to think about is these are small, so we don't want to do too many facets in the design, because it's just going to look, it's not really going to help. It'll end up just being harder to cut and probably look less, have less flashes and be more, I don't know, it just doesn't look as good on small stones. Small stones don't need as many facets. So it's possible, it's totally possible we could get away with just having a single tier on the bottom, which is kind of boring, but again, for these small stones, it might be the right call. However, it does seem kind of boring. So let's do, so if we were doing like a round brilliant, the basic here would be to do just then like a half, not like that, but half like this. Right, that might look familiar if you've seen the bottom of a round brilliant before. So the question is, do we like how this looks? It's kind of okay. So one thing I will do is, you can see it'll auto choose what's called a meet point here, so I can jump up to that and click on meet. So now it's affixed there, so it'll stay connected, and I can kind of like mess with stuff, you know. I could even change this to like 3, you know, something like that. And that's the other thing about a 12 symmetry initial start, is it's got, you know, 2, 3, 4, 6 as divisors, so you can kind of do cool stuff like that. I tend to like, let's think about this. It's gonna be like this. Let's clear that meat. Let's go back, but let's do it this way. So I've never really tried doing just a simple one like this. I know this doesn't look like much, but again, it's a small stone. So let's just see where that goes. I guess I could do like a, that starts, we don't want it to look like that. Okay. But maybe we mirror. Yeah, I'm gonna keep it simple. Okay. So let's just line up the cut here. We'll say this will cut to center point. And if I hide these, you can see like, and I'll go through this, it's called the cutting assistant. So if we had a perfectly, you know, cubic block, this is what it looked like, but we're cutting into our rough here with our first tier to a center point right here. And that's what we end up building off of. So then, this isn't exactly a meet point, but this is another technique to properly set the size, is we cut in the girdle, and how we know that we've gone deep enough on each one is we get this nice level line all the way around. So that's our next reference point. And between those two, that sets up things to be a lot easier for the rest of the design. So we really want this to be a really nice center point, really accurate, and that allows this to fall into place easier. And then our final tier, boom, sorry, boom, this tier goes in, so I can also put up here, I'll put GCP, which is temporary culet point, and then I'll say cut to FCP, which is final culet point, and that's it for the pavilion. Oh wait, crown. No, I don't know. Okay, I was getting confused there. Okay, so now we'll go into the crown. Again, we need to do that kind of initial thing. So this is again going to establish a level top side of the girdle, and here we establish the thickness. So the question is, what do we want this to be? So these things are pretty rounded, so it kind of behooves us to do maybe like a slightly steeper angle, maybe like a 51-degree angle. Whoops. Let's maybe start there. And it's also kind of fun to just see, like, okay, if we keep going, that's kind of, 53 is kind of interesting looking. Okay. Now it kind of looks worse, right? Because now we have our table's gone. We have to recut the table again. So this is showing you how the light's gonna move around. Another cool thing here is this light path viewer, so you can see why. So if I if I go to the top view and I'm looking down, since there's not a table, now you'll be like, why do I see right through it? Well, if I fire a light ray, you can see it goes in, it diffracts, and then it's because of the angles of the diffraction, it goes out the back, which is called windowing, because you can see through it like a window. I'm actually going to change this to be a white background. Actually, whoops. This is another feature in GCS. You can turn on, like, it'll color the part that's windowing in like a obnoxious color so you can see it. And I do use that sometimes, but I'm actually going to turn that sort of back for now. Okay. Oh. Classic stream move there. You haven't been able to see any of this. That's disappointing. Well, here we are. I've got that back up now. So let's keep going. All right, sorry, that threw me off a little bit. Okay, so we got this. This is going to, I just usually say level, I'll say like set girdle thickness, level girdle. I mean, I always know these instructions, but this is a design that's meant for, I always put in my email in here, because I'll probably end up sharing most of these designs out as free. I'll put them somewhere like on my website or somewhere, do a Google link or something to them. So this is probably meant for smaller stones, you know, maybe up to 9 millimeters, and we'll say designing for smaller rounded Montana sapphires. And at 1.76. All right, and I can add some more notes here later. Okay, so again, we're here. Again, not a crazy design. We could layer like a 6 on top of a 4, but then it kind of makes the symmetry a 2 symmetry, so we'll continue with 4 symmetry on the top. So let's do 4, but maybe do 41, and this will, we can jump that down and do something like this potentially. We can see it's kind of windowing over there. Let me make sure you guys can see. Oh my gosh. Am I hitting something? Oh, that's right, I have hotkeys. Okay. So maybe you did see some of that. Okay, I'm just gonna have to, after I type, I'm gonna have to come in here and check, but I need to fix that on the next one. Okay, so we have like that as an option, but again, there's kind of like here, I think that probably, again, doing this 12, from the corners is a good mark. Let's maybe go up to 44. Yeah, I kind of like that. Let's just see if any of the other mirrors look any different. Usually like to at least mirror 2 out, so it's, if you do a mirror 1, then all of a sudden, these facets just don't end up being that far apart. It's nice to get a little bit more of a crisp thing there. So let's cut. And now what we could do is just call it a day and give it a square table here. And it does look kind of interesting. It's about the right shape, but I don't think that's what I want to do. I think I want to do one more tier and maybe like 24. Right. And let's figure out if we can do something interesting like this. We like how that reflection pattern looks. Kind of interesting. Is that going to be difficult to cut? That one's pretty bright. Do I like it? That's the question. You can see how it's flattening things out. Let's try 29. And now let's try putting a table in there. So cut. Okay, so that looks, it's not the most probably original design ever. Now it's looking more interesting. Okay, so this is kind of like a first draft here. Let me double check I didn't. Nope, okay, you can still see. So, yeah, first draft here. We can take a brief look at this for performance. So it's okay. Windowing's not bad. It could be a little bit brighter. The dotted lines are showing like the values when you're looking directly through the table. So the top flat facet and the rest is like the overall stone. But one of the cool things they have here is this manual optimizer, which can help you tweak, either increase the, I'll show it this way. So what it's doing is it's like a better version of this Z tangent. So you might say, well, I need to change the angles a little bit, but I want everything to stay, all the meet points together, like I keep all the meet point connections. So what you can do is, kind of like stretch or shrink either of these, right? I'll cancel that for now. But this tool is kind of nice because it does that same thing, but it lets you kind of click between different ones. You can even expand it out and be like, I want to see what like a super tall table looks like, and you can see that that'd be kind of ridiculous. That one's kind of interesting. Yeah, let's just widen this up. And then what I usually do is like, okay, I obviously don't want any on that side or that side. These top ones are looking a little sus. That one's kind of interesting, actually. What's the graph look like? Okay, not great. A lot of these, I think we need to go down to 93 and 109. So we're getting back to the original kind of range. Another thing I like to do is use this AG model. So it's a specific lighting model that shows you where the different, so like when you're looking down at a gemstone, you have something called head shadow, which is literally your head's shadow on the stone blocking light. So that's why you get like some dark spots. And then there's light coming from around your head and, all the way out to some degree that's entering the stone and has the potential to bounce back into your eyes. So this model is basically like the model it's using is basically looks like a bullseye kind of, and it has these different rings of color so that you can kind of see like, okay, the color that's from the edges, which I believe is the purple, is the farthest away over here that's coming in. You can see how much of that light's getting bounced back into your eyes. The black is the head shadow, or like the estimated head shadow. So you can see here, right, like this is all window over here. It looks a little messy. So really all of these, I'll start here, but I think those are too tall. These are still too tall, so let's go down one more. Now we're starting to get somewhere. Again, this one, yeah, I don't like all that windowing on the outside, so we'll remove this down. Again, this is still pretty heavily windowed, so let's do that. I mean, I kind of know what angles to put stuff at, so we're probably not going to be that far off from what our, if we're looking for like our original designs right in here, right? Like not exactly, it'd be at 100 and 100. So it'd be like a little more this way and a little more this way. But here is where you can be like, okay, do I like how, and these changes in this, especially between head shadow, are going to show like, it's not necessarily about brightness, but contrast. So you might, if you can see a lot of head shadow or a lot of flickering, that may mean in the final gemstone that you have something like that. And generally I want to see like the full frame, full outline of the frame, like with none of that. So we can go a little bit shorter even on that and maybe scooch this back out a little bit and check out some of these. We can look at the graph and see like, as we go this way, our performance gets better and better. And it starts to tail off a little bit. That one's pretty bright. And then you can go up. So if you're just optimizing for brightness, and again, this is a model, it's not guaranteed or anything. This one's going to be a really bright stone, which might be good for some of the ones that have a darker color, but you may want to downplay it a little bit for ones that are lighter colored. I tend to favor things like, see how this kind of looks like it'll be cool. Let's see here. And also ones where you can see head shadow kind of flickering in and out. So like that, oh, that one's kind of nice because you can see like at some of these angles we're getting the head shadow. So that's gonna like in real life be more of like a twinkle, brilliant type thing. So maybe let's focus in around that one a little bit. The other sanity check that I do is you don't want the crown to be too shallow. Like you can see the crown gets, taller, which is cool. But too shallow is going to make it look literally flat. So it's good to sacrifice some other areas too, just to get the ratio a little more in your favor. What about up here? What is this looking like? Okay, that has this kind of weird black rays for the head shadow. What about over here? That window's kind of quickly over here. So I mean, I'm leaning towards, like this direction. Let's do a quick scan, see about, like over here. Yeah, I kind of like this one. So how does the graph look? Graph looks good. So I can say, this is probably what I'm going to pick. The other thing I can do, and actually just to kind of save it, this one I like, I can put it in the middle of a grid like this, and so then I know, okay, this is actually the one I just picked. So then if I change models, I don't get confused. So then if I go, another one I look at is cosine, which kind of, they all kind of look the same, honestly. So, and they're pretty bright. So let's just go ahead and apply that. Because now we can see our final stone there, what it's going to look like. And we need to do a couple things here. So we need to finish the instructions for the ground. So we left off with the, let me make sure you can see there. Okay. Excuse me. So we left off with this one. Then our next cut here, you can see we're cutting in, and we call this a meet point here. So we're going to, I simplify it. You can use like meet, like the technical one be like meet G1, C1. So we're down here, we're meeting C1 at a point and also G1. I tend to make these a little more like, I don't know, readable for this one. It's like meet the girdle. It's the same thing for this one, and it just like reads a little better. So you just cut until you get to the girdle. And then this one, it's more important to say like, okay, we're at this stage now. When these come down to meet, they're going to meet C1 and C2. And for these simpler designs, if you're experienced, it's pretty obvious like where the meet point's going to be. But when in doubt, look at the diagram. And then finally, we can show the table comes in here and has 4 meet points with C2 and C3. Okay. All right. So then the last thing that is a best practice, generally speaking, is, I like that. I think that's going to be good. I'm curious. I always want to tweak. What if we do some mirroring there? What if we change this to 3 symmetry or 6? I don't know. I just haven't tried 4, so I kind of want to try it. Let's hit cancel, but the other thing I could try is like 4 that's this direction, or that's, closer to like 8. See, now I'm tempted to do that. That looks kind of cool. And it's still, I mean, it's 8, it's not 4, but it's still kind of an interesting pattern. Yeah, I might have to do that. Oh yeah, see, that seems kind of killer to me. Yeah, let's just F it. We'll do it live. Literally. Okay, so I normally come up with a better name for these, but like I said, since they're tied to a stream and I'll probably release them, I'm just going to name them like, this is my second stream doing GCS live. So 002, and then kind of like the shape and the material that I'm targeting, or the RI. Sapphire implies like a 1.76 RI, which is the same as like garnet and a few other things similar to alexandrite. So we're looking good there, looking good there. You can also run, okay, sorry, final thing here. So another good practice here is to round these to the nearest tenth. So instead of 41.88, do 41.9. We can just kiss that back up there. This one was already at a nice number. And on the crown, the way I do this is just hide these in order, just like you'd be cutting them. So this one's, not going to suffer from being 100th different. Might even improve. So we'll cut that. This one, we'll do 31.2. And jump, meet that there, save. And this one actually can just, whoops. This one can just stay how it is because it's already to a 10th. And then the table, just make sure it's meeting properly there in the design. Okay, cool. And we can see tilt performance here. Looking good. We can see, this is kind of cool. So rounds aren't the greatest. This shows you sort of like a yield calculation. I forget exactly how it's, I mean, it kind of tells you how it's calculated there, but the higher this is out of 1, the better yield you're getting out of like sort of like a cylinder shape, I think. So this, we're set on corundum already for Sapphire. So these, let me take out my, just out of curiosity. I mean, I think I know how wide these things are, but for fun, I just want to use this. So like, say this is probably the biggest one. Let's see, so it doesn't really work that way. Upside down. Is it also, am I crazy? Oh, it's because I have the camera mirrored. Anyway, so the larger one is 8.3. So it depends a little bit on the girdle thickness. I gotta get used to that. Depends on the girdle thickness, but so that was what, 8.3. So let's say, I'm not gonna get it like exact because I'm gonna have to like do some cleanup, and that might be the longer side. So let's say we get 8. Whoops. 8. So if I was really lucky, I might get over 2 carats. So that I might shoot for that one because that's pretty cool. And you can see that's with a pretty thick, for that size stone, it's probably going to be closer to 0.2. So yeah, if I'm really careful, maybe I can get over 2. Or if I leave a fatter girdle, I'll have some more wiggle room. And then for the other ones, let's say those are like, there's one that's 7, which will be 1.5 carats, and one that's 6. Let's close that for a second. I'm not sure what happened there. I keep clicking the wrong thing. Okay, so width of 6. So if we can get like 6.2, yeah. If we can get a little above 6, which we probably can get for most of these. So even this one that's I had already previously tried to cut. Sorry, getting used to this. I don't know if it's easy to tell, but this one already like kind of looks faceted because I had tried at one point to facet it. So let's see. So that one on the shortest side, 6.3. So even that one, in theory, I can get a carat out of, which is really a big breaking point for Sapphire. I mean, people still buy Sapphires under 1 carat, but like there's like a psychological sort of boundary. So let's go back to the design session. Okay. So anyway, maybe all these I can get above 1 carat. Most of them, like 4 out of 5 above 1 carat. 1 above 2 carats would be awesome. You know, 2 carat sapphires, and these are a little bit included, but that's semi-common for Montana's sapphires, and they're still structurally fine and all that. So what else? I can show off this thing, which is kind of cool, which kind of is similar to what I was doing. It shows you how you're going to be cutting these facets. So cut the first 12, then cut the 12 girdle facets to get our outline, and cut our 8 sort of like break facets, I guess, our P2s, then cut our girdle defining ones, cut our C2, C3, and the table, and you're done. So we ended up with 61 facets, which is about the same as a standard round brilliant, which is around usually like 57 or 58 facets. So just a slight variation on a round brilliant, honestly, that's 12-sided. Usually they're 16-sided, and they have a little bit less facets on the crown. But this should be fun, and I can, I think you'll be able to see this. Let's see here. Yeah, there we go. So when you do a print, it'll generate this cool diagram, which I will actually print out when I'm cutting it. So I can have it right next to me and not have to have like slurry and water getting on like a screen or something like that. Cool. So I'm going to call that a wrap for the design session. So hopefully we learned a little bit about, learned a little bit about Montana Sapphires and got some experience looking at GemCut Studio and how I go about designing something. So I might be a little more like, if it was like a bigger piece of rough, or, you know, sapphire is valuable, but a bigger sapphire that's really valuable, I'd probably spend a few days thinking through this, especially if it's not a round shape, if it's a weird shape. But yeah, that's pretty much it. So I will stop the stream there.